Hey everyone, I'm Bill Anderson, host of the WURD Morning Show, and we got the opportunity to sit down with the Chief Financial Recovery Officer for the Philadelphia School District, as well as the interim superintendent. His name is Tom Knudsen, and he went in depth telling us all the things that are going on in the district. We're going to take you through it, a little summary of the things that we experienced with him today on the show, starting with asking for an update of the current status of the school district. Where are we right now in terms of our finances?
Fiscal 11-12, which we're just coming to the end of on June 30th, has been traumatic to say the least. Coming into the year, the revenues for the district were cut somewhere close to $500 million. And that was the triggering device that led to a whole series of problems that were answered with severe program reductions and cutbacks. When I came in January, we had a $615 million shortfall. When I was finished a few weeks later, we had a $1,750 million shortfall, and $715 million shortfall. Okay. And we managed to bring that down to about $22 million, and I think I can close it by the end of the year. We have there's some flexibility that we can book some of the additional savings after the after June 30th. Where that has left us now is a $200 million deficit, or projected deficit for fiscal 2013. And it's in that context that the conversation with the City Council is ongoing. In that projection, we have assumed that we will get the $94 million that's associated with the AVI initiative. We're hoping that action is ongoing right now, but we are counting on that. If we don't get those funds, then our projected deficit is increased.
After considering where we are currently in the school district with our finances, we asked Mr. Knudsen to go a little bit deeper and explain to us how we got into such a deep deficit.
What had happened was over 2009 and 10, the state had received a lot of stimulus funds from the federal government, which were then passed on to the district. And when the stimulus starts to dry up, then, and that was $350 or something million dollars, and then, yes, indeed, the state then did cut some of its programs as well, but the bulk of the reductions was in the discontinuance of the stimulus money.
So as you heard, he explained that a large portion of this was the cut to stimulus funds and money coming from the state, but we asked him to go a little bit deeper, wondering whether or not this was predictable. Should someone have seen this deficit and these cuts coming?
Well, I think it's, I have to be careful. I wasn't there. I don't know exactly what happened. But, yeah, I think the assumption that the stimulus funds would ultimately run out should have been in an active planning mode. In other words, what we're doing right now is we're looking at recurring revenues, recurring costs. Stimulus wasn't recurring, all right? You knew at some point, so you couldn't build what amounted to permanent programs around a non-permanent source of revenue, and I think that was the essential issue. I think the other calculus, or the other assumption that might have been made was that the stimulus would give way to an accelerating economic recovery, and that you'd have more revenues in that way. But in retrospect, it's easy to be critical. Personally, I would not have looked at the stimulus as any kind of permanent benefit.
Some of the things that have led to some of the controversy in the city surrounding the Philadelphia School District are the way that they're spending some of the dollars. I asked him about this consulting contract with the Boston Consulting Group, whether or not they were necessary, and could we as a city afford to pay them millions of dollars to teach us how to save money in the district.
Boston Consulting was one of about 9 original respondents to a request for qualification. We interviewed 5. And we settled on them. We absolutely needed to have this help. There was just no question of that. Well, the nice thing about this is that BCG is being paid for by philanthropic and community and corporate interests, so that we're not tapping the operating budgets of the school district to do this. I mean, that's a very important distinction. You have to spend some money to create the capabilities and the resources that you need.
We opened up the phone lines and let the listeners ask questions of Mr. Knudsen. One of the questions that came up was, how could someone with no education background be asked to lead such a large school district? Here's what he had to say.
The SRC understood when they retained me that I was not an educator. And so what we have done is to have a dual relationship within the district. I am in charge of this transformational effort that includes the structures around the business aspects, and we have this is a big business. This is $3 billion of activity that has to be managed. So I'm in charge of managing the business pieces of this. There's a very talented, wonderful woman who is Penny Nixon, who's our chief academic officer, and it is she who has that responsibility to make sure that the academic program is what it has to be. She's come up through the ranks in Philadelphia. She was a teacher, she was a principal, she was an assistant superintendent, and I think she's done a wonderful job. I am not addressing the academic programs. I'm addressing the overall enterprise and business requirements.
Another question came up from the listening audience asking about charter schools and potential voucher programs. They wanted to know, how could charter schools seemingly do a much better job of educating young people and doing it for significantly less money? Mr. Knudsen had this response.
It does cost us $13,000 or $14,000, all in cost. Now, what does that mean, all in? It means paying for the buildings, paying for maintaining 300 or 400 structures, debt service. These are the costs that are on top of education. We have to offer transportation to everybody in the district. That's not borne by some of these other organizations. We have the food program. So there are a whole series of support elements to this that in the abstract make it look like we're more expensive than the vouchers or the charters, but in fact we have a higher cost burden than they do.
Finally, in wrapping things up, we asked for some closing thoughts, and I think that you'll hear that ultimately his bottom line goal is what's in the best interest of young people, while also taking into consideration our budget. Here's how he wrapped up today's interview.
We cannot sacrifice the children for adult programs. We must redirect our priorities towards the kids. And what I would ask is that we involve the community not only in conversation with the mechanics of this program, but involve the community in support of the right thing to do here, which is to get children educated. We need parents involved in the schools. We need folks like me making some sense out of the business pieces of this, but we need a larger conversation around education that puts the kids absolutely smack in the middle and makes them the focus of everything we have.
There you have it, folks. Make sure you're listening to 900 AM WURD. It's the only place that you'll get a chance to speak directly to the newsmakers, get in-depth, insightful discussion on all the things that are taking place, and even call in if you've got your questions. I'm Bill Anderson. I hope you enjoyed this summary, and I encourage you to listen every day from 7 a.m. until 10 a.m. Wake Up with Bill on 900 AM WURD. We are on air, as you can see, online and in the community. Have a good one.